Hey there, everybody. Katashi here. I'm back. I'm back from my not so short break of 7 months. If you're a regular here at this channel, you know that that's not really too odd for me to do. It's not very unusual. I typically take these really long breaks because I guess I'm just a pretty lazy content creator here on YouTube. I don't really upload too frequently. But yeah, hey, I'm back. I'm back today to bring you guys a sniper weapons tier list video. And I'm pretty excited about it actually because as of I would say maybe early 2022, so this year, I really started getting into sniper, and I can say with confidence now that I am a full-fledged sniper main. I really enjoy the class. I think it's really fun, very challenging, very rewarding, and yeah, I really just like the class, and so I really just wanted to make this video for you guys, and hopefully this will inspire maybe some of you to get in sniper yourself and play him. All right. So we got our tier list here. We got primary, secondary, and melee. I'm doing it this way actually because obviously a weapon like, for example, the stock sniper rifle is going to be infinitely better than like the Troublemane's Shiv. You can't really compare the two. It's a gun versus a really crappy knife, or I guess blade. I don't really know what you'd call this, a shiv. I don't know, whatever, sword, a dagger. I don't know. So you can't really compare the two. They're not really comparable. So I'm doing it this way: primary, secondary, and melee. Basically, anything on the far left is the best, and anything on the far right will be the worst. All right. So without further ado, I don't want to waste your time any more than I already have. So let's get right into it, shall we? So stock sniper rifle. Um, what is there to say? It's really just the best, I guess, primary weapon in the for the sniper. It's good old reliable. It's very very good. There are no downsides. Obviously, it's just pretty fantastic, and I absolutely recommend this weapon for anyone starting off sniper. All right, very very solid. Then we have the Bizarre Bargain. So the Bizarre Bargain is actually, I would say, a little bit worse, just a little bit, than the stock sniper rifle. And the reason for that is that, generally speaking, you need to be pretty darn good at sniper to make this thing, worth using. So if you can't really get, like, for example, 2 headshot kills with this thing, it's going to be a direct downgrade to compared to the stock sniper rifle, okay? For those of you who don't know, this thing starts off with a slower charge rate than stock, all right? So it's a direct downgrade when you first start off with it. However, if you can get 2 headshot kills with this, the charge rate will be the exact same as stock. And so at that point, it'll be, the same. But if you can't get it to that point, then it's just a direct downgrade. So if you're not very good at sniper, I don't really recommend using this thing unless you're, fairly competent, Um, so, if you're not very good at sniper, I recommend maybe just using stock over this. And also, there's another thing I want to mention. This weapon has actually a secret stat, all right? It has a secret stat that some people actually don't know about, and it's a negative one. It's a negative stat. And that stat is fear, all right? Let me explain. So, with the Bizarre Bargain, right, if you get headshot kills, it gets added to a little counter, all right? For the Bizarre Bargain, okay? And so if you get 2 headshots, right, the charge rate is equal to the charge rate of the stock sniper rifle, okay? So once you hit those 2 headshots, what people tend to do is they begin to play with fear, right? They begin to play way more passively than they normally would with like stock, because they don't want to lose those 2 heads that make the weapon on par with the stock, all right? Or actually, if they have even more than 2 heads, I think it caps out at like 6. If you get 6 heads, the charge rate's like almost half. It's like 1.8 compared to 3.8 of stock's charge rate, which is like really fast. So the more heads you have with this thing, the more fearful you play, typically. So the higher the head count, the more scared someone plays. So, and because of that, I would also have to say that, because of that, this weapon is also, for that reason, below stock, all right, because of that secret stat, all right? So, but all around, it's a pretty solid weapon. I mean, I recommend it, even if you're not particularly good at sniper. Go for it. Go use it. Why not? But just be aware that if you can't get those two headshots, you're using a headshot kills specifically. Then that you're gonna be using a direct downgrade to stock. All right. So if you're good, use it. If you're not so good, maybe just stick with stock for the time being until you get good, and then maybe switch over to this. It's up to you though. But like I said, keep in mind of that secret stat. Okay, fear. Keep that in mind. All right. Man, I spent a really long time on this thing, didn't I? All right, moving on. We got the classic up next. This is awful. This is if I could honestly, if I could like put this thing to a separate category, I would, because this thing's just that awful. It's I honestly, this is no joke. I think it's actually just his worst weapon in general, even worse than like the majority of like secondary and melee weapons as well. It's just so awful. All right, and the reason for that is you cannot headshot with this weapon unless it's fully charged. All right, and on top of that, if you miss that headshot, it does like I think 10% less damage on body shot or something. So you can't even kill a full health medic with a body shot from this thing. So it's just awful. It's a dumpster fire of a weapon. All right, it's just really really bad. Do not use this thing. Okay, please do not use this thing. Really really bad. Next we got the Hitman's Heatmaker. All right, so I'm put this below the Bizarre Bargain. So I would say it's decent. It's all around it's an okay weapon. The charge mechanic, or the focus mechanic, I should say, is actually pretty interesting. It's pretty useful too, because being able to just keep firing without having to unscope and rescope is actually really really nice, and can make snipers' life, when it comes to hitting headshots, actually a lot easier. However, this thing does have a pretty sizable downside, and that downside, of course, is you do 20% less damage I believe it's on body shot. All right, so this thing really punishes you for trying to get like no scope body shot kills or something. You know what I mean? Which is actually quite a substantial con, I guess you could say, to using this weapon. All right, because what if you need to finish someone off? So it's for that reason, I would say it's definitely below the Bizarre Bargain. Next up, we got the Huntsman. So the Huntsman, some people argue this is probably like worse than the Classic, but I very much disagree. This is infinitely better than using the Classic. I would rather throw my kid off a balcony if I had a kid. I'd rather throw my kid off a balcony than use this weapon. All right, the Classic is just so awful. So I definitely say that the Huntsman is infinitely better than this thing. Okay. Huntsman, of course, I don't recommend using it if you're trying to actually play a real sniper. But hey, if you're like really really bored, you've been playing sniper for like years upon years upon years, and you're just like getting a little bored of the normal sniper gameplay, then yeah, go for it. Why not? Freshen things up a little bit. I will also say that the charge rate for this thing is actually pretty insane. You can do like 120 damage per body shot in like I think it's like 2 seconds or something. It charges pretty fast. The arrow, or it might be like 1.5 seconds. I can't remember, but it's pretty fast. And of course, it can headshot kill as well for 360 damage, which is pretty nice for something that charges so fast. Of course, it is a projectile though, so there's gonna be some prediction involved. So it's definitely nowhere near as good as something like the stock sniper rifle, but it's a overall an interesting weapon, and it's a breath of fresh air, I guess you could say, for sniper if you get really really bored, or if you just want to play really aggressively, go for it, I suppose. But I don't recommend it if you want to play actual sniper. All right. So up next, we've got the Machina. All right. So the Machina is a it's a weapon. I would say it's not as good as the Hitman's Heatmaker, and the reason for that is you cannot no-scope body shot, which is actually a pretty big deal with sniper. And the reason for that is because there are situations where you need to finish someone off with a quick no-scope body shot, and you can't really afford to scope in, because if you scope in, you're going to waste a little bit more time, and they're going to be able to turn a corner and be safe. All right. So, and the only way to really kill them in that situation is to kind of no-scope body shot them very quickly before they turn the corner, for example. You know what I mean? That's just an example. So no scope body shots are really useful. I think they're maybe looked down upon in the sniper community because the sniper community tends to be pretty elitist. But do not sleep on no scope body shots. They are very, very useful to the sniper, and I recommend using them if need be. So that's a pretty big downside to using the Machina. On top of that, to really make use of the sniper of the Machina's upsides, you have to be fully charged to make use of its 15% damage bonus and to make use of its penetrating ability. So it's not the greatest weapon. And on top of that, like I said, you can't no-scope body shot, and it has tracer rounds. So it's definitely worse by a long shot than like the Hitman's Heatmaker. Yeah, I almost forgot the name for a second. Yeah. So it's okay if you want to, I guess, use it, but like, just keep in mind you could be using things that are a lot better than this thing. Okay. Moving on to actually our last primary weapon, which is the Sydney Sleeper. And so the Sydney Sleeper I'd put probably below the Huntsman. Maybe. Or, maybe. I guess above the Huntsman, I guess. Yeah. I mean, sure. Because you can do more damage with this thing from a longer range and its hit scan compared to this thing, where, it's a projectile, and a body shot with this thing is going to do less damage than a body shot with this thing. So, yeah, I mean, I guess I'll put this thing above this. Why not? City Sleeper is pretty trash, though. Keep that in mind. It is it is pretty awful. You can't really headshot with it. You can mini crit headshot, but like that's really underwhelming. And it's like you might as well just use this if you're gonna go for headshots. You know what I'm saying? There's just infinitely better options if you want a headshot, which is like sniper's like primary thing. You know what I'm saying? So it's pretty bad. It's just a really overall underwhelming weapon, and I don't really recommend you use it. So yeah, we'll just leave it at that. Basically, it's just pretty bad. Don't use it. But yeah, that's the secondary, or sorry, that's the primaries taken care of. So this is I feel pretty confident, pretty good about this, I would say. Um, Generally speaking, yeah. So let's go ahead and just move on to the secondaries. All right. So the first one, Cleaner's Carbine. This thing it's pretty underwhelming. It's not really all that good. I would say it's better than something like, let's say, the Razorback or the Darwin's Danger Shield, for example. But other than that, it's pretty garbage. It fires slower. It has a smaller clip size, and yeah, you get mini crits with it after you fill the charge meter. But it's like who cares? You know what I'm saying? As sniper, you shouldn't even really be using your secondary all that much, unless things are someone's like right in your face, for example. And of course, when that happens, you might as well just use the SMG so you can mow them faster. You know what I'm saying? I don't know. In very incredibly rare circumstances, it is better than the SMG, like when you pop those mini crits. But even then, it's very situational and very rare. So it's just overall not a very good weapon. All right. So the SMG easily outclasses it. I can't seem to put it over there. Let's just move this. There you go. Boom. So yeah, the SMG. A lot of people actually sleep on the SMG. I'm not gonna lie to you. I don't actually see too many snipers use this thing nowadays. Do not sleep on this weapon. All right, this is probably, in my opinion, the best secondary you can actually choose as sniper. All right, with the Girardi being probably second place. All right, so the SMG. All right, the SMG is just very, very good. You can defend yourself, defend your teammates. It's very solid, reliable damage. And you can also track spies. You can, it's just very, very handy to have on you for that extra self-defense. So you don't have to rely on your team as much if there's like a scout pestering you and he's like right in your face. You know what I mean? So very, very solid. I really, really recommend you use the SMG. Or if not the SMG, then maybe our next option, which is, of course, the Girardi. Girardi is also super duper good. You can put out fires, both, if you're on fire, you can put yourself out, and you can put your teammates, out if they're on fire. And on top of this, you can, of course, cover your enemies with this. and they will take mini crit damage, which is actually really, really nice. So if you want to do like some quick and easy no scope body shot damage after you've covered them with this, it's actually pretty darn reliable, pretty solid. And if you pair it with the Bushwalker, which is right here, you can do a pretty quick and simple, easy melee kill, which will be a guaranteed crit of, I think, 195 damage. So it's really, really solid, just in general. By itself, it's really solid, but also if you pair it with this, it makes it even just a little bit more deadly. Yeah, so pretty cool. Moving on, we have the Cozy Campers. The Cozy Camper, I would say, it's either above the Cleaner's Carbine or below it. I think just generally speaking, I'd say below. Really all the backpack items. Let's just do this real quick. Let's do that and then this. Having a literal gun over some little backpack items is infinitely better. Okay, obviously the Cleaner's Carbine is pretty bad, especially compared to like the SMG and Girardi. But if you were forced to choose between these four items, I would always choose this, okay? Because at least you have a gun, to shoot, kind of defend yourself with a little bit. The Cozy Camper, all it really does is it lets you regenerate health. When you're fully charged, it lets you fire without flinching, which is actually kind of useful, I suppose. And on top of that, you take 20% less knockback. So it's definitely useful, definitely interesting. But you could be using a gun, you know what I'm saying? So to defend yourself properly and easier. So I would definitely say use this over any of these backpack items, all right? Because it's a gun. It may suck, but if you have to choose between these four items, I'd recommend this, okay? Darwin's Danger Shield, it just protects you against fire damage, which is like, if there's a pyro next to you and you're playing sniper, you honestly deserve to die in that situation. You really just deserve death, because how in the world did you allow a pyro to get that close to you? You know what I'm saying? Obviously, there's also situations where there's like a pyro that's like pestering you from across the map with like a scorch shot, or like a detonator or something. But at that point, just headshot the guy. Come on now. Work on your sniper skills a little bit. And just headshot him. So this thing is a pretty stupid, I would say, secondary. Definitely one of the worst. The worst secondary I'd actually have to say is the Razorback, because this is literally just just turn around. Just turn around. Just be aware of your surroundings. Watch out for spies, and you should be good to go. This is a pretty redundant and foolish weapon to use for a secondary. Now, I will admit, I do actually use it, but it's mainly just to force myself to use the sniper rifle and just go for headshots all the time instead of relying on like secondary weapons. And I mainly just do that just to improve my aim. But if I'm really trying to play seriously, I'll use either one of these two, mainly the SMG. Okay, so just want to put that out there real quick. All right. But yeah, those are the secondary weapons. We can move on, I guess, to the primaries, or sorry, melees. Yeah. So the Bushwalker by itself is actually pretty scuffed. It's actually pretty awful, honestly. Because you take more damage when you pull it out. It can't random crit. Of course, it crits whenever it would mini crit, but like, how often do you get in situations where the enemy is able to take mini crit damage? You know what I'm saying? Unless you pair with if you pair with this thing with the Girardi, it's pretty solid. It's pretty solid. It might even be the best melee weapon if you pair with the Girardi. But this tier list is more looking at weapons like by themselves, instead of like in combination with other weapons. You know what I'm saying? So by itself, this thing is pretty bad. It's not as bad as the Troubleman Shiv, but it's still pretty underwhelming and just kind of bad. So yeah. With that being said, the Kukri easily outclasses this thing, just easily. The Kukri is very reliable. It's got no downside. It does a consistent 65 damage, 195 if you get a random crit, and so it's a pretty reliable way to defend yourself in a close quarters melee encounter. Pretty solid. All right. Now, the Shahansha, all right, or however you pronounce this thing. I would put this thing above the Kukri. All right, I know you're probably confused. You're like, wait, what in the world is this guy talking about? How's the Shahansha better than this thing? And I'm glad you asked. I'll actually explain. So, as sniper, right? Let me ask you this: when do you pull out your melee weapon? All right. The answer to that question should really only be when death is knocking at your door. Okay, when someone is in your melee range, obviously. Okay, that is when you're pulling this thing out. And what happens when people are in your melee range, right? Well, typically you tend to take a lot, and I mean a lot of damage, okay? Like, a lot. Certainly enough damage to get you to below 50% HP, okay? So in that situation, which is like 99% of the time, if someone's close to you, like a scout or a soldier, they are going to be destroying you, okay? If they know what they're doing, they're going to be destroying you, okay? So you're going to be taking a lot of damage in that melee kind of close quarter area, okay? So it's always going to be better to use this than this in that situation, which that situation happens about 99% of the time when someone's in your melee range, keep in mind, okay? Very rarely is like a scout or a soldier in your melee range and they don't do enough damage to put you below half HP. That just very rarely happens unless you're playing against just the world's worst TF2 player or something. You know what I mean? So this thing is very, very. It's a sleeper weapon. It's kind of like the SMG. It's very much a sleeper weapon. Okay, people sleep on this weapon a lot. So if you don't know, right, this thing does 81 damage if you're below half your HP, or if you're at below half HP, and it does, I think, around 49 damage if you're above half HP. Okay, and like I said, as sniper, you're really only pulling out your melee weapon when death is knocking at your door. When you're low HP and they're right in your face, and you really have no other option to finish them off than to melee them. So do not sleep on this weapon. Okay, it is extremely, extremely good. I can't even I pretty much never notice the downside of the 49 damage when you're above half HP because that never happens. When people are really in your face, you're guaranteed to take a lot of damage as sniper, okay? Like a lot. So you're pretty much always going to be doing a consistent 81 damage and actually over 200 damage if you get a crit with this thing and you're below half HP. So you can one shot a full health soldier that's right in your face. It's pretty impressive. It's pretty darn good. And I definitely recommend using this thing over the Kukri. Now, don't get me wrong, the Kukri is still amazing, but I think the Shahansha is just generally speaking very much better because you only put your melee out when, like I said, death is knocking at your door. Okay, so that is why this weapon, I believe, is better than the Kukri. Okay, and then to wrap off this tier list, we have quite possibly Sniper's worst weapon. All right, I like to refer to it as the brother of the classic. Okay, and that is the Troublemane's Shiv. Right, this is just awful. Never use this thing ever, please. I beg you. All you get from using this thing is 6 seconds of bleed damage, which is who cares? The enemy can just run into a small health pack and they'll be fine. And to top it off, it does 50%. Let that sink in for a second, right? 50% less damage than the Kukri. Okay, so this thing is awful. It's definitely his worst melee weapon by far, okay? Never use this weapon, okay? Never, ever use this weapon. Some could argue that, it's useful for tracking spies. And I suppose, I guess, maybe. But even then, the Jarate just does that job even better. So, never use this weapon. Ever, okay? Unless you're trolling, of course. But, if you're trying to play serious, don't ever use it, okay? So yeah, that pretty much wraps up our tier list, I think. I think I've covered everything here. No reskins, obviously, as you can tell, because they're just that. They're just reskins. Like no Shooting Star, for example, or no Opera Hand, because they're just reskins. So who cares? You know what I mean? Just looking at the base normal weapons, all right? But yeah, that's it. I hope you guys enjoyed. I hope this was informative. And hopefully I've encouraged you to start using weapons like the SMG and the Shahansha more often in your sniper gameplay. All right, because these two weapons, the SMG and the Shahancha, are sleeper weapons. All right, these things are extremely, extremely good, especially the Shahancha. That's a really big sleeper weapon. So I really recommend you use them. All right. But yeah, that wraps things up. Hope you all enjoyed. You know the drill. See you guys in like what, like another like 5 years probably. I don't know. So yeah, thank you all so much for watching, and have a great day or night. Yeah. All right. Take care.